In the last video I demonstrated the bevel and emboss. So in this video, what I want to do is I want to work with the 3D Revolve. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I created these Keurig cups. And the point of this whole thing is to explain what you need to do to create a revolved 3D object like this. And hopefully the video will give you a pretty good idea of actually how simple it is to do this. This is really very simple once you grasp the basic idea as to how to go about it. So my goal is to produce these two objects right there using the 3D Revolve. Alright, so I'm going to go to Keurig Start, and as you see, what I've done here is I've actually created a sample to show you how I'm going to do this. A couple of things that you need to be aware of. I'm going to go to the View menu, I'm going to bring out my rulers, and I'm going to drag a guide out, and I want to show you that my mock-up, my model, my edge, my profile is what it's really called. My profile for my cup is sort of like even, and it runs out and it runs around. It also has, when I select it, it has a fill on it, a fill of none, and a stroke. And the stroke will be whatever color you want this stroke to be. Alright, that's an important thing for you to consider. Right now, in the drawing stages of this, I'm just going to have a stroke of black so I can see what I'm doing. Before I'm done though, I'm going to change the color to something very light like this so I get the right feeling for my K-cup. Now you can go in, and I notice there's a couple of things here. There's like a couple of little lips and stuff in here. I mean, you can go in and you can add them if you want, but the purpose of this video is to just show you how simple and easy it is to create one of these shapes and revolve it. Okay, once you feel it, you've done it and you're comfortable with it, you can go in and you can make these contours, these profiles, as complex as you want by adding definition to them. Anchor points and definition points are what gives these shapes their character. Okay, so I'm going to go to my Keurig Start. All right, the next thing I want to talk about real quickly are layers. So I have a couple of layers here, and there's my two layers. Right now everything's on that layer. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take this, I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to go to transparency, and I'm going to bring the opacity down on this really low so I can barely see it. Okay? Barely see it. I just want it there as a whisper so that you can use it as a reference point. Okay? Then what I'm going to do is go back to my layers, and I'm going to lock that layer. The reason I'm locking that layer is so I cannot touch that, edit it, get near it. That's not important for me. It's just there as a visual reference. Okay, I'm going to work on what I call the front layer. So now I got my front layer selected. The back layer is locked, which has my little sample on it. And this involves the use of the pen tool. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to engage the pen tool right there. And what I'm going to do is, actually, before I do that, I want to zoom in a little bit because I think it's a little easier if I zoom in somewhat. I'm going to get the pen tool. Now, the important thing is that the ends should line up with one another. That's an important thing because you're going to revolve this thing 360 degrees. Okay? Since I'm going to be using the pen tool, I want my lines to be straight, so I'm going to start by clicking, and I'm going to place my first point right there on that guide. I'm going to hold the shift key down, then I'm going to come out. And truthfully, it doesn't matter where you come out. You can come out anywhere you want. You're just going to click to place another anchor point. While I'm still holding the shift key down, I'm going to come down slightly, and again, it doesn't matter how far down you go. I'm going to click to place another anchor point. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to come down and I'm going to click and I'm going to place another anchor point. Again, it doesn't matter exactly where you put this. I'm going to click and place an anchor point. I'm then going to come way down here and I'm going to click to place an anchor point. Again, I'm holding the shift key. I am now going to leave the shift key alone, and I'm going to re-click that anchor point. I'm going to work around here ever so slightly, click, hold, and drag to create what is known as a curved point. I want this one little point to be somewhat curved, just like that. I'm going to click that anchor point, that ending anchor point, one more time, and what that'll do is that'll convert it back to a straight line segment. Hold the shift key down, and I'm going to come over to my, actually I'm going to go past it, and I'm going to click and actually double click. Oops, I actually have to remove one point. I went a little too far with this. So here, I don't need this. Let me just show you. I'm going to come in here with my delete anchor point tool. I'm going to delete that one last anchor point because I made a little mistake. I didn't get it. Let me get it on there. There. Okay. So let's go to the view menu and let's take a look at this. Fit artboard and window. Let me zoom in on this guy. Okay. So we basically have our shape, but our shape doesn't really look like our other shape. So what we have to do now is we have to modify this shape. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on this thing, select it, and I'm going to move it down onto the same level, the same position as my sample right there. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this so you get a better idea what I'm doing. I'm doing it this way because I want you to understand how flexible this whole thing is. I mean, you have a lot of flexibility here. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to use my direct selection tool. Okay, I'm bringing them out and I'm going to put them over here. There's my direct selection tool and there's my group selection tool. Major difference between the regular old selection tool, this guy right here, is that when I click on this shape, the entire shape gets selected. When I click on that shape with my direct selection tool, every one of those little anchor points are open anchor points. What that means essentially is those open anchor points are capable of being selected independently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start reshaping my shape that I've created to try to match my cup that I have there. I'm going to do that by clicking on anchor points. Okay, now let's do the easiest one first. The easiest one is this guy right there. Okay, I went too far with it. I want it to end up there. I'm going to click on that thing. I'm going to hold the shift key down and I'm just going to slide it over until it hits that guide, just like that. Okay, simple, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the more difficult ones. This one right here, I'm going to click, hold the shift key down, and I'm going to click, and then I'm going to use my up arrow. Watch what happens. Bring my up arrow up until my shape hits there. And actually, it looks like it's over to the right just a little bit. I'm going to click on it one time, the left arrow, to move it over some. And actually, I like that little edge like that. I think that actually will help the character of this. I'm then going to deselect this thing. So you see I've modified that. Once again, with the direct selection tool, I'm going to click on the object to select it, hold the shift key down, and this time I'm going to click on that anchor point and that anchor point. Using the left arrow key, I'm going to arrow that over until it hits about where I want it, which is right about there is good. Maybe one more. Right about there is good. Okay? So you see how I've modified that to make that lip? Very cool. All right. So now what I got to do is I got to bring this thing up so that it's about that depth. Now, when I created this K-cup shape in the first place, I don't know whether that's an actual size or not. The bottom line is all I'm trying to show you here is how to play around with the pen tool and the direct selection tool in order to make a shape that you can use in a 3D Revolve. That's what this whole thing's about. Okay, so once again, come over here, click, select my shape, my anchor points down here, the one I'm going to be working with. In this particular case, I want this to come up. It involves this anchor point right there and a shift select of that anchor point right there and a shift select of that anchor point right there. And I'm going to use my up arrow to simply up arrow that guy over until I get it where I want it, which is right about there. Easy, right? I mean, this is not hard. Last thing I want to do is I want to give it this taper. To do that, once again with the direct selection tool, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click, hold the shift key down, click, and I'm going to use my left arrow key to slowly just walk that shape over until in the end what I come up with is my K-cup shape, which is that. That is an edge or a profile of my K-cup. Now I'm not exactly sure that this is in the right place, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on that, and I'm just going to use the left arrow key to move it over one, and I think I'm in good shape right now. All right, I don't want this thing to be black. What I want is I want something very, very light in color. So I'm going to select it using the regular old selection tool. I'm just going to select it. Then I'm going to come over here, and on the stroke, not the fill, I'm going to come in here, and I think I want this to be in the bluish kind of family. So I'm going to bring it into a blue sort of area, right about like that. And then I'm going to take my little sampler here, and I'm going to drag my sampler up until I hit the top, and I'm going to keep walking it over, looking here, until I get something extremely light, almost white. I want it to be just a tiny little bit of blue in there, just like about like that, and hit OK. Now, if I deselect this thing, there's my shape. I'm going to go back to my layers panel. I'm going to hide my background layer so you could see it. There it is. Okay? I know it's hard to see because it's very light. All right, so I got what I'm looking for now. Let's go back, let's go to the view menu and let's fit this thing in window. And let's go in and let's see what happens when we revolve this guy. So I'm going to select that shape. I'm going to go up to the effect menu and I'm going to go to 3D and I'm going to go revolve. And I get my revolve options dialog box. The way I do this is I can use either positions, or I can use my mock-up right here and I can move my mock-up around, or I can use these directional rotation devices, which I don't particularly like using. I find them a little too difficult. So what I would probably do is either try to choose something from position or something here. Let's take a look and see what happens if I hit preview on this. Okay, so if I get preview, I get something that's fairly close. Check it out. This is actually what I'm going for right there. That's the shape that I'm going for right there. And you can see how easy it is for that to render that object. Very simple. All right, what I think I want to do with this though is I think I want to tilt it down just a slight bit more. Maybe bring it like about like that. I think that's probably pretty good right there. I'm trying to match this. That's pretty close. I might have gone too far with it. Let me bring it up a little bit. That's probably pretty good right there. Okay, the cool thing about this is you can rotate this in any direction you want. I mean, it's just crazy what you can do with it, and it's a lot of fun. You can come in here and you can use custom rotations. There's an off-axis front that brings you back to what the default was. Isometric left. See, there are all kinds of different ways you go. Actually, the isometric left I like pretty much, but I think what I want to do is I want to back it up a little bit, bring it up just a little tiny bit. And when I did that, of course, I threw it a little bit off kilter. So I got to try to see if I can rotate it back into the kind of rotation I want. I'm actually pretty close there. Maybe down a little bit. And maybe over to the left just a slight bit. That's actually pretty good. Let me bring it down some more. See, I'm just playing with this, trying to get it to look like the one that's up here. That's what I'm doing. I'm actually using that as a reference, and I'm trying to come up with something close. And you know what? That's good enough for our purposes. Let's hit OK. Okay, so there's my rendered object. That's step one. Now, what I want to do is I want to apply a graphic to this. All right? So what I've done is I've gone in online, and I found this K-cup. Let me go to the layers menu and let me unlock that layer. I got this K-cup graphic here. Okay, I wonder if I got the edges. No, why is it locked? Let me see if that thing's locked. It's not locked. Why am I not seeing it select? What's going on? Oh, I know why, because it's a symbol already. Okay, yeah, so what I did was I went in, I found this Keurig cup piece of art, and it's actually a symbol already. I actually took the art, brought it in, I auto traced it, which I'll do in another video, and this is now a symbol. piece of vector art that I turned into a symbol. You need to have symbols in order to apply the artwork to a 3D revolved or extruded piece. So if you take a look in the symbol panel here, there's my symbol, okay? And if I double click on this, I'm going to edit the symbol. I go in and you can see that this is basically a piece of art, and I can come in and I can change the colors on this piece of art any way that I want. I'm not going to do that because obviously I'm happy with it the way it is, and the example is not for this purpose, it's for this purpose right here. Alright, so the next thing you need to know is I've deselected my Keurig cup. What I want to do is I want to reselect the Keurig cup. So I click on it to reselect it. Now I can't go back into the effect menu and go to 3D Revolve or apply Revolve or Revolve. You can't do that because it'll apply another instance in it. So what you do is you go to the window menu here and you go to appearance. There's an appearance panel, and if you take a look in the appearance panel, it shows you that I have a stroke, a 1-point stroke, and it is that blue color. I have no fill, and I have my 3D Revolve. So I want to go back into my 3D Revolve because I want to apply the Keurig cup to it. So I'm going to click on my 3D Revolve, and I go back into my 3D Revolve, and I'm going to preview it, and it brings back my 3D Revolve. And then what I want to do is I want to map art onto this object. I do that right here. Click on this, map art. Now, this is going to give me surfaces. If you look over here, there are symbols. Here's where your symbols are. There's only one, and that's the label, but there are surfaces. And actually, there's 13 surfaces. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to walk through the 13 surfaces so that you get a sense of what they are. There's a surface, see it? It's that little indented edge. See it? It shows it right there. There's a next surface. That's the undersurface, I guess. Then there's another one, which is the barrel. And it goes so on and so forth all the way down to the bottom. You can put something on every one of these surfaces if that's what you want to do. Okay, and you can see there's a bunch of these things. All right, so I'm going to come back up. I think surface number 1 is what we're looking for. We'll find out in a second. I am going to come over here. I'm on number 1 again. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to apply my label to it. And I'm not seeing it, so let's try going back to none, and let's try number 2. Let's see if number 2 does it. Number 2 is my label. There it is. So it's actually, it wants to be on number 2. All right, and then what I want to do is I want to size this thing. So I think actually I could leave it like that, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make this thing a little tiny bit smaller, just a tiny bit smaller, and I'm going to center it on the top of this thing. The reason I'm doing this is because I think it just visually shows better. That's actually pretty good. I think I'm pretty good with that. Let me make it a little bit smaller just for the heck of it. I think there's a white edge on this. That's what I think the issue is. And I think if I do that, yeah, see there's a little bit of a white edge on the outside of that. So I want to make that a little bit smaller, like about like that, so I can get this thing on there and you can see that white edge as well. There, okay, it's pretty good. I think it's probably off just a tiny bit. But I can keep tweaking this thing and getting it to where it fits on here. Any rate, I'm going to go OK with this, and I'm going to hit OK with this. And now deselect it, and there's my Keurig cup. All right. Now, if I want to, I can do things to this thing still. I can come over here and I can select it, and I can come to my 3D Revolve, and I can hide the 3D Revolve, and I can come in here, and I can take my direct selection tool. If I want, I click on my direct selection tool, and I can click on my points. Let's go back in here and click on my points again. If I want to do this, I can click on my points, my point right there, hold the shift key down, click on that point right there, and click on this point right here and this point right here, and I can use my left arrow key to walk it over even more. Okay, and maybe this guy here, maybe I don't want this guy to be on such an angle. I'll just walk that guy back. So what I've done is I've actually changed the shape slightly. And then I'm going to take my selection tool, click on this thing, and I might even lighten this thing up just a little bit. Let's get in here and let's make that color a touch lighter even. Make it almost white, just like that. Hit OK. And now what I do is I put my 3D Revolve back on, and you see what it's done. It's actually modified that, making it look a little bit better even. Let's go to the view menu and let's go fit artboard and window. Okay, so there's my Keurig cup and it looks pretty good. So now what I want to do is, and this is really cool too, you can just click on this guy, you can go edit copy, and there's a number of ways you could do this: edit, paste in place, and I got actually another one here, and I'm going to take this one, I'm going to move it over. Okay, so now I got 2 Keurig cups right there. So my goal now is to take my 2 Keurig cups, which I'll move over a little bit further so I can actually do this. So I'm going to select this Keurig cup. I'm going to go back to 3D Revolve. I'm going to move this over here so that you can see what's going on. I'm going to preview this. And what I'm going to do, actually, I better move this thing around here. This is a difficult one because this window is so big and it doesn't move. I want to try to get the Keurig cup, this one, to look like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start rotating this guy. I'm going to start rotating this guy, rotating this guy, rotating this guy until I get what that angle is. And that probably is pretty close. I think it'll be close enough for our purpose. Look at that. So I can actually take one of these things. I think I really zapped this. Oh, that's actually pretty good. We bring this thing up. Not too much. We bring it back down. That's probably good. I think I'm going to stay with that. And let's go. Okay. And now, as you can see, I can take this thing and I can just move it over. I'm using the right arrow key to move this thing over. And look at that. I got my 2 Keurig cups, and I've actually managed to make these 2 Keurig cups look very much like that. Listen, this is easy and fun, and I definitely think that you should try doing this. Maybe try something similar to what I did here, which is very simple, a Keurig cup. You can go online, you can find this picture, and you can just bring this picture in and you can try to copy it the way I did. Try it. It's a lot of fun, and it will help you in your packaging courses. Thank you for watching.